Hey folks, I'm Saeed, the Codogrammer, and in this video we are going to look at the shiny new web server that comes as part of JDK 18. Now this is JEP 408, and by the way, JEP stands for Java Enhancement Proposal. Now the first thing is that this is a very simple web server, as the name suggests. This means it has a very limited set of features. You can serve up static content only, and it really is targeted towards new users, educators, testers, people new to the JDK who want to try things out, get things up and running quickly. Maybe don't want to download a lot of other external dependencies. For educators who may want to demonstrate something in a teaching environment, and for use in tests. Now you won't get a production use server, you won't get authentication, security. In fact, you won't get any of the other fancy features that you get with other servers. Why? Well, because that's just not the point of the simple web server. There are many other options available for actual web hosting. Okay, so in short, it supports idempotent get and head requests. Idempotent means multiple calls won't have an additional effect. And anyway, get calls should always be idempotent anyway. So how do we go about playing with it? Well, we have a couple of options. We have a command line tool, and we have a small API which allows us to spin up a server in code. Okay, so let's give the tool a whirl. Now, first things first, we need to install Java 18 because, of course, this is part of JDK 18. So let's just check what version of Java we're running. Okay, you can see that we've got open JDK 18. So I use a tool called SDKman to install and manage my Java version, so I can easily switch between different versions of the JDK. But you can install it however you want, as long as you can get it up and running and you've got Java 18 installed. So that's the only real prerequisite here. So once you have the tool installed, you can easily get it up and running by just typing jwebserver. And that's it. Just hit enter and you'll get a bunch of sensible defaults. Okay, now before we browse to the URL, the directory that we're in is where the server starts by default. So if I just run a command in there, you can see that there's a bunch of files in there. There's also one directory called ABC. So if we go back here and just copy this URL, here we go. We have our web server serving up content from that directory. All right, so now these are text files, but they could just as easily be HTML files and they should render just fine because they're rendered by the browser anyway. We've got a PNG file, which is just an image to show you that it can serve up images. And we've got a directory, which we can navigate down and see a file there too. So now let's just see what happens if we want to add a file to this listing. Do we need to restart the server or what do we need to do? So let's just create a new file here. We'll call it z.html. And let's just put a bit of HTML in there. And now let's just go back to here and we'll just refresh that. Okay, and you can see that that page appears. Now, if I click on that, you can see that it's rendered the HTML. Now, it's not particularly impressive, but you can see it has made the A somewhat bold. The browser is handling the HTML returned. All right, so this is the command line tool and it has a few limited options, which you can see if we just type this. You can see that it's got some fairly limited set of options that you can play around with to change the ports, to change the directory where you want to serve the content from, that kind of thing. And to stop the server, you can simply type Control-C in the terminal where it's running. Okay, so now let's go and have a look at how we can spin up the same server using code. So I'm just going to bring up IntelliJ. All right, so here we are in IntelliJ. This is an IntelliJ project that's running JDK 18. So if I just show you that, and you can see that this project is running Java 18, which is a prerequisite for the simple web server. All right, so let's have a look at the code. The code is very, very simple. So we create a simple file server using this factory method here, and we pass it a socket address. In this case, the port I've set is 8080. We already have one running on the command line with port 8000, so I don't want to conflict with that. I give it the path of the directory where I want to serve the content from, and that's the same one as the other web server is using, the one that we started from the command line. We just set the output level to verbose, see if we can get some extra information, and then we go ahead and start the file server. So let's just run that code. Okay, that should have started now. So what we'll do is we'll just go over to a browser and I'll just copy that address, paste it in there and just change that to 80. So you can see that we have one running here on port 8080 and we have one running here on port 8000, and they do exactly the same thing because it is the same thing. It's just one started from code and one started from the command line. Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, well, it's kind of useless since you can get this functionality very easily elsewhere, whether you're running Node or WireMock or actually Spring Boot or something like that. But the thing is that all of those cases you'd have to install something or spin up something or set something up externally. But I think in this case, it's really nice for people who are new to the language, want to try something out and find that what they need is already there in the package that they've installed and set up. The other thing to note is that this probably wasn't a huge effort for the Java JDK team to produce. It might be valuable to some users and it doesn't add any complexity to the language itself. Adding language features is particularly complex because every feature interacts with every other feature, as Brian Gates says, and adds to the inherent complexity in the language itself. But it's very easy to add external tools which may or may not be useful to some users. And I really think that this tool makes the developer experience for new developers much nicer. Okay, so if this was even remotely useful or interesting, please hit like. It will tell the mysterious YouTube algorithm that this content might actually be useful. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more useful software development content. Thank you for watching.